Hello out there, and welcome to the Bold Warriors Show. I'm your host, JD Hoovener, with my co-host, Matt Colseth. Matt, good
Hey everyone,
afternoon.
doing great. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. We've got our special guest here, Doug Bend from Bend Law Group. Doug, hello to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. This is awesome. So we're on video here. We'll be broadcasting across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. This is our new YouTube channel on the Bold Warriors Show. This is my effort. I want to make a real, hang it out there, tell everyone about what it's like running a law firm. The audience here, I'm hoping, is going to be maybe some people that are in-house or at a larger firm or in-house or maybe even still at law school, and trying to get them interested in information that may not be as public about what it's like running your own law firm, starting your own law firm, and all the ups and downs, challenges, and opportunities and fun things too that we can talk about as part of that. So we'll keep it pretty free form here. And I want to just give you opportunity, Doug, to start it out, if you don't mind, with a founder story. Let you share about what got you started toward owning your own law firm.
Sure, I'd be happy to share that. So every now and again, someone will tell me that I'm so brave for starting my own law firm, but the truth of it is that's not really what happened. I wish I could look back and say that it was due to, me, taking this big step without being pushed over the ledge, so to speak. But I started the firm in 2010, and I got laid off in 2010, and I was applying to jobs. It was a downturn. No one was really hiring. And while I was applying to jobs, not hearing back from anybody, I started to hear from friends, mostly friends of my brothers who went to business school, who were asking, hey, while you're looking for work, do you mind doing some stuff for us on the side? And after a while, I started looking at the numbers and thought to myself, well, you know what? I'm not even marketing myself here. Maybe I should really go all in on this law firm idea and start my own law firm and see where it goes. And that's what I ended up doing. So I started taking on clients in August of 2010. And then by December 2010, that's when I filed my business license to go ahead and start the firm officially.
Awesome.
That's awesome, Doug. I mean, we all came out of law school around the same time. I came out in 2011. Very similar experience. I guess pain is a good motivator for me, right? And so I was having to do like doc review right out of law school. I hated it. I was working until I was like doing like a night shift doc review thing and then trying to hustle, my business on the side. I give you a lot of credit. I think you are braver than you think you are.
Yes,
when forced. When I'm brave when forced.
Yeah.
So 2010, and so I assume it wasn't, a team at that point. It was just you. Is that right?
Yeah, it was just me, and really, it started with a road trip. So, I get laid off. I live in San Francisco. I work in San Francisco. Decided to clear my head and take a trip down Highway 1 for a few days, and visited a friend, JD, Levy Barlabi down in LA. And he was a law school classmate of mine who had started his own law firm a couple of years prior to that. And I said, Levy, we're having dinner. I said, it seems so daunting to me for you to go out and to start your own law firm. And that just seems crazy to me that you would even do that. And I'll never forget this conversation. I could almost picture the table where he said, Doug, it's starting a law firm isn't hard. You need a IOLTA account. You need a city business license. The hard part is getting clients. That's the hard part. So, hanging up your own shingle, that's actually not that difficult. It's getting enough clients who are going to trust you to do the work and who are going to pay you for the work in a way that's going to be sustainable for you to have a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. Oh
True advice.
And it's always that, ramping up period.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I had the luxury of having a day job as I started the practice. I was at Boeing, if you remember. Did you have something like that where you're actually able to just have enough money to eat and pay the bills? Or, I don't know. Let's go through that a little bit.
I really didn't. I don't come from a wealthy family. There was no trust fund I was pulling down on.
What?
I had been at a big law firm, so I had saved a little bit of money to have a bit of cushion to get going, but there wasn't a lot of cushion. This wasn't something that could take years for me to figure out. And so it was, it started kind of doing a few hours here and there, and then started to look at the numbers saying, you know what, like I'm not even marketing myself. I'm making, $2 to $3 grand a month. And one nice thing, there's challenges about the law, but one nice thing about the law and having your own practice is the margins are good. And so starting to think about really what would it take to make this a viable business. And I think one thing that when I talk to people who are thinking about starting their own law firm, one thing I like to chat to them about is that the metric is very different for success than the metric that if you're at a big law firm. So if you're at a big law firm, a lot of big law firms expect you to bill 8 hours a day. That's what you're expected to bill. And if you're not billing that, you may be asked to leave. When you have your own boutique law firm, if you're able to keep your expenses in check, you can make good money with billing 2, maybe 3 hours a day. And that's easier said than done to get those 2 to 3 billable hours a day. There's a lot of work that goes into getting those 2 to 3 billable hours a day. But if you run the math on it, if you do 48 weeks in a year, billing, 12 to 15 hours a week, $300 an hour, and you're keeping your expenses in check, you can make $100,000, just billing 2 to 3 hours a day and taking a pretty good sizable vacation every year.
That's cool. Really good. Let's talk about billable hours. That is still a foreign subject to me.
Me too.
Start wherever you want in terms of, the past 13 years of your firm. I mean, maybe, yeah. How do you do that effectively? Like you said, it's easier said than done to even get those 2 or 3. Yeah. What are some of the big golden nuggets, things that have helped you get to that level where you are able to bill consistently at that 2-3 hours per day?
I think that, about half the work we do is on a flat rate. About half the work we do is on a billable hourly rate. So I think the first thing is taking a look and thinking about what types of services do you want to offer. And early on, I did some estate planning work, some probate work. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do business law, if I wanted to do estate planning. I think there's a lot of similarities in that both areas of the law, you add a lot of value to the client. And that feels good to me, right? But I think figuring out step one is what area of the law do you want to practice in? And just because you did something at a different law firm doesn't mean you have to do that at the law firm you're starting. Maybe that's a component of what you're doing. The second step is out of that scope of services, what things are conducive to flat rates? There's a lot of advantages of flat rates, and what things are not conducive to flat rates. So we found, for example, for us, a lot of contract negotiating isn't conducive to a flat rate. I experimented with that early on, and you really run into 2 problems. Problem number 1 is a lot of clients treat it as an all-you-can-eat buffet. And so, hey, if it's a flat rate for, reviewing and negotiating this contract, maybe I ask you to have 7 rounds of revisions, where if I was paying on an hourly basis, maybe there's just 2 rounds of revisions. So really people taking advantage of that. And 2, negotiating contracts, a lot of that's outside of your control. We have a very good idea how long it takes us to review that contract initially and to provide feedback, but we don't know the other party. Are they going to sign off on revisions? More likely there will be some back and forth. Is it 1 or 2 rounds? Is it 3 to 5 rounds? So because there's so much variability there, we do that on an hourly basis. So that's just an example of types of work that maybe is more conducive to hourly work than flat fee work. And then the last thing I say, I think I've learned anything, is that you don't want to be the lowest price option that's out there, because you'll attract a certain type of clientele that aren't the best clients. It's a race to the bottom. And so I think early on, a mistake I made was that I had my rates set too low, because early on it was all about breaking even. I need to make this much to live in San Francisco. It's more expensive than other parts of the country. So I need to make this much. I just need it every month, trying to break even. And so quoting myself too low sometimes in the hopes of signing that last project on the 28th of the month to put me over the hump. But I think what I've learned over time is that the best clients are willing to pay a fair market rate if you have great expertise. And those are the clients that you want. And so if they're calling 3 different attorneys and one's quoting 1,000, one's quoting 2,000, and one's quoting 300, they may look at the person with 300 as like, what's wrong here? Like, what are they not doing that needs to be done? What are they missing? I may not go with a $2,000 attorney, but maybe I'll hire the $1,000 attorney because I want it done right? And so I think really making sure that you don't undersell yourself. You should have fair market rates that reflects the level of experience you have and the value they're adding to the client.
So smart, Doug. So smart. That's a lesson that I had to learn too, is that, my services, my expertise, or, lack thereof when I was younger, it's important today, right? And it's worth something. And I don't fool around with clients who aren't, willing to pay a fair rate for the products and services anymore. So that's
I think really, one advantage to having your own practice is that you can experiment. And so when you work with another law firm, it's very much your hourly rate's 300, your hourly rate's 400. This is what it is. Next year you bump up to a little bit higher, but this is what it is. When it's your own shop, you can set it at whatever you want to set it at. Experiment with quoting different rates and seeing what the conversion rate is. You know, if you're quoting 20% higher, but you're signing just a few fewer people, maybe you're netting more money for less work. And so
Right.
I always found for me that whenever I've raised our rates, we don't do it that often. Maybe annually we'll take a look at it. But typically when you raise our rates, our reaction isn't like, oh, let's backtrack. Let's go back to what we were before. It's, oh my goodness, like people are still saying yes.
Yeah, no, that's something that I've discovered too, is that, you know, the market for legal services is pretty elastic, right?
Mhm.
You know, the clients that I work with and that I value and who value me, you know, if we increase our prices like we've had to in the last couple of years, it doesn't impact, you know, the retention rate or the sign up rate for our clients, right? If anything, it's just the firm's able to make more income.
Have you ever done that though, Doug, where you actually charge more for the same service in a test?
This is
I've
a
thought about it. What?
This is a private setting, right? So
This is
No, sir. No, I'm
no
asking
one
you a really uncomfortable question.
activities listening.
You don't
yeah,
have
so I have, and it's I think it's usually a few different things. So one, it's, you know, one of my favorite sayings that JD we've talked about before is, you know, don't paint the red flags green. And so when you're onboarding a new client, you're doing that interview process, and it should be more of an interview where they're feeling you out, seeing if they want to work with you. You should be seeing if you want to work with them. And if we're seeing a lot of red flags, really either referring that to another attorney that might be a better fit for that client, or baking that into the pricing. Particularly, it's a flat rate, saying there's a lot of wrinkles here, a lot of things are coming up. If this is on the initial call, who knows what else might be out there? Let's make sure that the flat rate reflects this additional layer of complexity that this project is going to entail. So that's one example where, you know, a California LLC might cost, you know, X for one type of client and Y for a different type of client. I do over time. I have grandfathered in clients with older rates as I've increased my rates over time. And part of that's been a thank you for them getting involved with me early on. And part of it, frankly, is an availability with my time. So at this point, you know, my book is pretty full in terms of the amount of work I do. And we have other attorneys at the firm. And so it's to say, hey, look, like, you know, one, I have a lot of experience, but I don't have a lot of available time. And so if you really want to get at that time and you're a new client, there's a bit of a premium there. We have other attorneys at the firm that are very capable of doing great work for you. Their rates are lower. Maybe you want to work with them instead. So kind of encourage clients to sign some of the other attorneys of the firm, really based on availability, where the clients have been here for a while. Their rates tend to be a little bit lower to reward them for getting in early on.
Oh, that's really cool. What I thought you were going to say is for basically PETA, pain in the ass clients, right?
Yeah, there's a tax for that.
As a way to, you know, maybe usher them out, free them up to the marketplace, charge them more. I've always said I would do that. I don't think I've actually ever done that. Have you guys had the guts to do that?
Yeah.
Would you recommend it? Okay. Yeah.
I do that with my clients. I mean, yeah, I'll be totally honest with you. My clients that are fun, easy to work with, that have like a good set of boundaries between us, you know, that don't text me on the weekends. You know, those clients get first class service and they get first class rates, right? I mean, they get a good, reasonable rate. If you're a client who's texting me on the weekends and always in my ear or jumping on my calendar, you know, without prompting me, you know, first, next time we do business, I'm going to charge you more. Mm-hmm. That's just it, because I know that you're handheld and you're a heavy user, and my participation is going to reflect that.
You know, I know a law firm here in San Francisco. They charge a premium for work that's done on the weekend or after business hours, if the client insists on it, right? So if it's, hey, if I'm deciding to log in on Saturday morning to do it, because that's when I have availability, they don't charge more. But the client's like, this has to be done this weekend. They charge a premium, and it's a pretty hefty premium. And, you know, I think part of that is the culture that they're trying to build at their law firm to be more of a balance, you know, and having that relationship with the client. And if that client's expectations really are that I expect you to be picking up the phone at 1 p.m. on a Saturday for something that's not a true emergency, you know, maybe that firm's not the best fit. They're trying to build a culture where there's a little more balance here with their attorneys and the work that's being done.
Interesting. Hey, Doug, I kind of have a rule myself for the clients that I work with. You know, my rule, generally speaking, is if I'm not talking to the owner of the company that I'm working for, that company is not a good fit for me. If they have a general counsel, that's probably not for me.
Why not?
So I like to have like a personal relationship with the business decision maker, right? And so I find that that is really important. It kind of lubricates the process. And if I'm working between intermediaries on the intermediaries, our efficient process, my efficient process just goes to pieces. So
I like
I've
that.
learned that I like to work with companies that where I'm talking to the owner or the decision maker. And if that's not the case, then I got a referral for you. And it's a bigger firm here in Minneapolis.
Okay.
I mean, it reminds me a little bit of Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. Right, one of his core principles is that 20% of your customers, clients, almost regardless of what business you're in, create 80% of your headaches. And really, goals as a business owner is to get rid of that 20%.
Yeah.
And really focus on the clients. Another 20% of your clients give you 80% of the game, right? And that, I think there's a lot to be said about that, and really thinking about who's a good fit for your client, for your firm, and really if you're a good fit for them long term.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to, and what JD and I do is flat fee too, right? And so we have a process in place that fits probably 80% of the clients that walk through our door, right? But the other 20% maybe doesn't fit clean, and we're not a good choice for that because we don't bill by the hour, we bill on the project.
So something else we just did, this is fresh off the presses, we just implemented this. We have in our client service agreement, we've snuck in, but we've added in our hourly rates, even though everything we ever plan to do is going to be on a flat fee schedule, because we're starting to do something after, say, we file a provisional patent application. There can be a full year without any actual work being done. There's not an open schedule, but oftentimes we'll get pinged and our status update. Hey, what's going on? I'm doing this with a manufacturer. Are we okay? And we've all up until now have done that for free. No longer is that going to be the case, because that's now going to be either hourly or they have to pick a maintenance plan. Well, we're working on the naming of it yet, but some sort of a plan to where we're going to be their retained counsel, and you got to pay to have that representation during that lull or in between those flat fee schedules. What are your thoughts on that, Doug?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said about that, right? And it's all about fair billing. And I think one of the nice things about a flat rate project is the client they know what they're paying going into that. But I think a key on the lawyer side is to have a very specific list of exactly what's included in that project. So when it goes outside that scope of what's included, it's fair for both parties to say, you hired us to do X, you're also now asking us to do Y. That's not included within that original scope of services, so that would be extra. And I think as long as you're transparent with the client, saying, just so you know, this is outside your flat rate, and we'd be billing you hourly for this, or you still want me to get back to you on this analysis, I think that's perfectly okay. I think where clients get frustrated is when they get a bill that they don't expect. I mean, no one likes getting an invoice they don't expect. So when they get an invoice at the end of the month that says, "Oh, I didn't realize that you'd be billing me for this. I wouldn't have asked that if I didn't know you'd be billing me for this." That's where they get frustrated, right? And I think sometimes it's on the client. Sometimes we send out hundreds of invoices a month. Every month there's one or two. It's like, I'm surprised I got billed for this, and often my reaction is like, "Why are you surprised? Like you hired us, you retained us, or we have we pay by the hour, we pay past invoices, and I'm not doing this for fun. This is what I do for a living." So sometimes I think it's on the client, their expectations, but sometimes on an attorney, particularly in the scope of a flat rate project, let them know that these are really what you hired me to do for that flat rate. Happy to help you out with this other item, but that would be additional. Do you want me to move forward so I'm not getting an invoice in the end of the month that they're not expecting?
Oh, that's really good. One thing that Megan liked at our firm, she's our CEO, is that we have that ability to charge, but we have that also the ability to say, you know what, you're just checking in for the status. Don't worry about it. Right? It's on the house. But it's sort of that extra benefit of waiving that of what we could have charged is, I think, maybe even the biggest the biggest leverage to just show that you're doing right by the clients. But for those helicopter clients, those 20% you're trying to kick out, they're getting a bill. So,
and what I really try to do is, I think it's an invoice is many things. One of the books I read about practice management really emphasized that an invoice can also be a marketing document, which is a lot of times people don't think about it that way. But taking that extra 30 seconds when you write off time to put that on the invoice, 0.1 hours, wrote back to the client, wrote off 0.1 hours. And I think what that shows, I think that invoice is much more likely to be paid when they've seen that you've already written time off for them, working on a project. So that I almost view it as marketing time, taking that extra step and that additional entry into the invoice so the client can see when we've written any time off.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm writing that one down.
This guy, lawyers.
We're just scratching the surface. Clinic on. What else you got?
I'm out. That's all I have. That's it. That's
it. Gosh, no. You got to pay, right? Okay. Consulting fee for Mr. Ben. Okay. Well, okay. Let's fast forward. Let's talk about your firm. Okay. Ben Law Group. Tell us about your firm and maybe a few of the attorneys, what you guys are currently doing and what's your business plan?
Sure. So we serve as outside general counsel for entrepreneurs. We're based in San Francisco. Our clients are mostly in the Bay Area. We have clients around the country, around the world. It's everything. We help set up over 50 new companies a year, a lot of contract draft negotiating, raising capital, some buying and selling companies. And then we have a couple litigators on staff that litigate as well. So there's 6 full-time attorneys at the firm. It started with myself initially as the only attorney. I hired my first W-2 employee in 2013. And then since then, every few years we've added someone on as the growth of the firm has indicated that maybe we have enough volume work there to support it.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for you. What have you found to be the top few things that have helped you to grow?
Well, I think a lot of it is, it just takes time. And I think when you start a law firm, it's frustrating. And I probably like this analogy because I'm from Nebraska originally, but I view it very much like farming, right? So you plant a lot of seeds, and some of those seeds take a while to grow and to mature into great referral partners and great clients. And when you're getting started, the law firm is frustrating because you're out there doing all these things, and sometimes it just takes time for those to turn into actually closed business. So someone can like you a lot and want to send you business, but it may take a few months for that right lead to come up for them. So I think it's easier said than done, but I think patience, especially on the early side, and 2, like really fostering those relationships, recognizing who is it that is likely to send you business. And you figure that out by asking other attorneys that are in your area, right? So meeting with attorneys that do similar lines of work and asking them, who sends you business? And I think, for me, one of the answers I was expecting, one of the answers I wasn't expecting, the answer I was expecting was other attorneys, send business, attorneys work, shocking. The answer that was surprising to me was CPAs. And CPAs send a lot of work to business attorneys. And a lot of it is because of 2 reasons. One, they're trusted people. And so, you're showing your CPA all your financials, they know a lot about you, right? Right. And so they often trust that person. And so when there's an introduction from a CPA, the conversion rates are very high because that trust often transfers. And then for the kind of work that we do, a lot of entity formation work, that's often very tax driven with setting up S corps for particularly with service providers. So, but I found that out by talking to other business transactional attorneys about who sends them the work. So I think that's step 1 is identifying who your ideal referral partners are. Step 2 is figuring out a way to add value back to them, because if somebody is sending you 5 leads a year and you're not doing anything that help them back in some way, some fashion, or at least showing that you appreciate what they're doing, they're going to find someone else who does at some point, right? So I think it's, being proactive and thinking about ways you can maybe generate some business for them, or if you're going to a networking event, ask them if they'd like to attend, especially if it's a thing that they might be interested in, or if they like wine or baseball tickets, comping them some wine or baseball tickets now and again, or at the very least, sending them a thank you note. Saying thank you, particularly a handwritten thank you note. I appreciate your trust. I appreciate you introducing me to this person. I'm going to do everything that I can to help them out.
Oh my gosh. Doug, by the way, thank you for the referrals you sent me this year.
the wine.
I also mentioned baseball tickets.
What kind of wine do you like? Okay, this is really good. Seriously.
Hey, Doug, do you do referral fees? I mean, if you're sending work to other people, do you get a referral fee for that? Or how
we
do you
do a very select group of attorneys. So California is a minority rule state in that you can refer work and get a commission from it to other attorneys, as long as that other attorney doesn't charge anything more to the client, and as long as they disclose it to the client. And so it's probably less than half a dozen attorneys that we're already referring a lot of business back and forth that have asked for that. And if they ask for it, it's something that we're certainly open to. But number 1, the quality of work has to be very high because it's a reflection on us, the kind of work that they do. So it really has to be someone that we've gotten to know over a period of time. And I think, with that, a big surprise for me is that I was worried when I did it for the first time because I was afraid the client would think, is Doug referring me to this person because they do great work or because he's getting a cut of the business? And that really hasn't been the case. I think we work with a lot of business owners. I think a lot of them recognize that there's real value in closed business when you send it to somebody else, particularly if they're working with an attorney that they really love, that we facilitated that introduction.
Yeah. I feel the same way about that. I don't see any problem with it. If it's a relationship that you've had for a long time that you feel is really important, integral to your business and your client's business. Yeah, and as long as it's transparent to the client. And I've never in 12 years of practice, I've never had a client once, mention like an up-counsel relationship or like a referral fee or anything like that. They just, they see it and they're like, okay, I get it.
Right. Yeah, it's like us attorneys are thinking about it 10 times more than the client is. We're trying to analyze it from different situations.
Right. And of course we are, because we have to, we have a code of ethics, right? And it's important that we're fully transparent. And unlike a lot of professions, we can't do stuff, on the sly, right? Which is great, which is how I'd like to operate anyway. But yeah, we want to do right by our clients, right? And so that becomes part of the analysis.
Doug, I have a little bit of inside baseball knowledge about you, sir, and how you track. You talk the walk in terms of tracking your referral sources. Can you share with us how you keep track of that?
Yeah, I certainly can. I think up until recently, it was just in my head, which is a horrible system, right? So if this person seems to be someone who sends me a lot of business, I should make a better effort of sending them work back. And really, in the last 2 or 3 months, we've started to integrate Clio Grow into our practice. And one of the things that we like about Clio Grow is that you indicate on the intake form, like who not just if an attorney sent you business, but who sent you business.
Yes.
You have reports that you can run where you can see who sent me the most, leads in the 6 months, a year. Not only the most leads, what's their conversion percentage? And so are they sending me good leads? Are they sending me garbage? Sorry, still appreciate it. But who are sending me the best leads? And also the average price on the lead. So you can say, who sends me the highest value leads? Averages out 10,000, 50,000. Who are the people that should be really taken out to dinner, making sure I'm adding value back to them in their lives, and hopefully keep those leads coming.
Doug, yes, Clio Grow, game changer for me, because I do the exact same thing, right? I track every client matter that comes through the door in Clio Grow, who it comes from, if I have a referral arrangement with them, what percentage they're going to get, or it makes things amazing. And it makes writing those thank you notes at the end of the year, those, Christmas cards, that much easier too.
This is pretty cool. Okay, Gold, I got to put it down. We're stuck in some other world.
JD, we have to do Clio Grow with both. We have to.
We do.
It's incredible.
This is the time. I've heard it from Doug, and Matt's been raving about it for a while.
So Clio Manage, I hate Clio Manage. Clio Grow, that's the sauce.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Last couple of minutes here, Doug. Anything you wanted to share? Anything top of mind? Coming into the show. Anything you want to say to a budding, attorney that's looking to hang their own shingle, perhaps?
Yeah, I'll say that the first year is the hardest, and it's hard for a number of reasons. One of the reasons it's hard is that there's a lot of things that you have to do that you're not making any money off of, or you're spending money on. So websites, business cards, getting a work email account. And so you're churning, you're putting all this effort in, planting all those seeds and waiting for them to grow. And so I think the first year is very challenging to start your law practice. But if you can make it work long term, I think that there's a lot of unhappiness in the practice of law. This is an area that you can really have some better work-life balance, and I work hard, but I have a lot of flexibility in when I work. I have my kid gets off the summer camp at 3:00. I can go pick them up. It might mean I'm working a little bit later, to make up for that time. If I'm at a big law firm, that'd be much more difficult to do that, right? So I think I look at starting your law firm is an investment and perhaps having a more work-life balance in the long term.
It's amazing, Doug, and thank you for that. Your firm is fully virtual?
We are, yep.
Okay, us too. There is I've heard it from a couple of different places. People I talk to about this kind of, especially the larger firms, they're trying to get butts in seats again. So I would love to have you on. We're going to do a virtual practice management kind of a chat. Get your take on that, and whether clients really do want to see people in person, or if it's just kind of something else going on. That's kind of just a measure of control, perhaps, of the workforce. So curious about your thoughts on that. We'll have to have you back on to talk about it. We'll leave a cliffhanger.
I'd love to come back.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
Definitely would
Good.
love to have a second bite of the apple with you because you're a wealth of information.
Well, okay, quick plug. I do have a legal mastermind for only those that are super select. Matt, we have invited you. So
I know. What was I doing? I had a meeting that was happening on
Must
Friday.
have been an emergency. So
Well, like
anyway,
that.
if you do want information about joining a mastermind, I'm going to give my email address here. I don't charge a darn thing for it yet. Just kidding. No, I'm not going to charge. It's a free deal. I get an immense amount of information from it. Collaborating with other business owner, law firm owners is so cool. We all actually are interested. Other than, unlike our spouses and significant others, like it's amazing, when you can get together virtually and chat. So, Doug, thank you so much for being on. A
Thanks,
pleasure
Doug.
as always.
Yep. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Matt, thank you for co-hosting, and for the Bold Lawyer Show, we're out. We'll see you next week, Tuesday at 2:30 Pacific. Take care, buddy.